Shalom Kulam, welcome everybody. This is chapter 5 of the Laws of Personality Development, Hilchot Deot, Perek Hey. Last week's chapter dealt with health issues. In other words, the things one should do in order to remain healthy. This chapter talks about what a sage should be doing in order to behave as a sage. So here we start. Just as a sage, a Torah sage, is recognized by his wisdom and by his personality traits, and he's distinguished by them from the rest of the people. So too does a sage have to be distinguished by his deeds. במאכלו ובמשקהו ובבעלתו ובעשיית צרכיו ובדיבורו ובהילוכו ובמלבושו ובחלקול דבריו ובמעשיו ובמתניו. He has to be distinguished in his diet, his food and his drink, and in his sexual behavior, and in his performing his needs, and in his speech and his manner of walking and his manner of dress and the way he speaks, the manner in which he speaks to other people, and in the way he conducts business. ויהיו כל המעשים האלו נעים ומתוקים ביותר. And all of these deeds should be pleasant and particularly well behaved. Ketzad, how so? Talmid Hachamim, let me just interrupt here for a second. Talmid Hachamim in modern parlance is usually called Talmid Hacham, which does not mean the same thing. A Talmid Hacham is a smart or a wise student. Talmid Hachamim is a student of the sages. It's a different term which Rambam uses exclusively, Talmid Hachamim. In other words, a Torah scholar. We'll just render it that way. Talmid Hachamim, lo yihya gargaran. He should not be a glutton. Ela ochel ma'achal haraui lehavrot gufo. Rather, he should only eat that which he needs to keep his body healthy. V'lo yochal mimenu achila gasa. Nor should he eat excessive amounts of food. V'lo yeher rodef lemalot bitno. And he shouldn't run after food to fill his stomach. Ke'elu shemitmaleim mima'achal u'mashke ad shetafuach kresan. Like those who run after food and fill themselves up with food and drink so that their stomach is pooching out. Ve'alehem mefurash b'Kabbalah, and in the tradition it says of them, and again, to stray just a second here, Kabbalah does not mean Kabbalah like it's used today, which refers to mystical teachings. Kabbalah, in Rambam's terminology, refers strictly to received tradition. In other words, that which was received from our teachers going back to Moshe. And it says this is a quote from Malachi, V'zareti feresh al pneichem perish hagechem, and I'll throw refuse in your face, the refuse of your festival offerings. Amru Hachamim, the sages said, Elu bnei adam she'ochlin v'shotin v'osin kol yemehen kehagim. This refers to those people who eat and drink and make every one of their days as if it's a chag, a yom tov. V'hem ha'omrim, and they are the ones who also say, from Yeshaya, Achol v'shato ki mahar namut. We should eat and drink because tomorrow we may die. V'zehu ma'achal l'rasha'im, and this is the manner of eating of evildoers. Ushulchanot elu, and these tables upon which they're eating, Hem shegina katuv v'amar. This is what the text uh, uh, insults and says, Ki kol shulhanot mal'uki so'a bli makom. That all of their tables are filled with vomit and feces, and there's no empty space. Avale hacham, but the sage, eno ochel ela tavshil ehad u'shnaim. A wise, a sage should only eat one or two dishes, cooked dishes. V'ochel mimenu kidei hayav v'dayo, and he should eat of it enough to sustain his life, and that's it. V'husha amar Shlomo, this is what King Solomon said. Sadiq ochel l'sova nafsho. The righteous eats in order to satisfy his soul. When the sage eats this small amount that is proper for him, he should only eat it in his house and at his table. He should not eat it in the shuk, in the marketplace, or in a store, unless in the case of very serious need. Why? So that he doesn't become, so that the people don't look at him disparagingly. Nor should he eat amongst the uneducated. And to clarify, Am ha'aretz means a person of the land, literally, but the actual meaning is people who are unlearned in Torah. They're Jews, and they may do some of the mitzvot, but they don't know anything about the laws. They don't know any of the details. They don't bother studying, and so they're Amei ha'aretz. They don't know any of the details. So a sage should not eat at an Am ha'aretz table. Nor, obviously, should he eat at those tables of the people who just fill their stomachs, the tables that are filled with vomit and feces. Nor should he excessively do these meals in any event, and even with other sages. He shouldn't eat at meals where there's a lot of people. It's only proper for him to eat at a meal which is a mitzvah meal, a commanded meal. For example, meals which are taking place at a wedding. And despite saying that he should only eat at a wedding meal, it's only a wedding meal. The kind of wedding meal he should be eating at is only one of another sage, who's getting married to the daughter of a Torah sage. But tzaddikim v'hasidim harishonim lo achlu me'olam miseuda she'ena shelehem. And the original pious and righteous people never ate except at their own table. When the sage drinks wine, he only drinks enough to help digest the food in his stomach. Anybody who gets drunk is a sinner, and he's despicable, and he loses his wisdom. And if he got drunk in front of the Amei ha'aretz, he desecrated God's name. And then it's forbidden to drink wine in the afternoon, even a little bit. אלא אם היה בכלל האכילה, unless it was within a meal. שהשתייה הוא שבכלל האכילה אינה משכרת. For drinking as part of a meal when you're drinking only to dissolve, help digest the food, does not cause drunkenness. ואין נזהרין אלא מיין שלאחר המזון, and we're only concerned really with wine that's being drunk after a meal, which is when people drink a lot of wine. אף על פי שאשתו של אדם מותרת לו תמיד, even though a person's wife is always permitted to him, ראוי לו לתלמיד חכמים שינהיג עצמו בקדושה. It's proper for a sage to behave with holiness. ולא יהיה מצוי אצל אשתו כתרנגול. He shouldn't be found with his wife all the time like a rooster. In other words, having sex all the time. אלא מליל שבת לליל שבת, אם יש בו כוח. Rather, he should have relations with his wife only once a week on Erev Shabbat, Leil Shabbat rather, the night of Shabbat, if he has the strength. And why is this? We already mentioned that he's supposed to not indulge in sexual activity more than a certain amount. But also his wife, he has an obligation to his wife to have relations with her on a periodic basis as a minimum, if she's interested. And so once a week is the ona, the period of time for which a Talmid Hachamim is obligated to have relations with his wife. וכשהוא מספר עמה, and when he, the word here, mesaper, means to speak with her. When he speaks with her about these issues of having relations, לא יספר לו בתחילת הלילה כשהוא שבע ובטנו מלאה. He shouldn't start up with her, in other words, at the beginning of the evening when his belly is full and he's satiated from the food. ולא בסוף הלילה כשהוא ערב, nor at the end of night, in other words, in the early morning when he's hungry. אלא באמצע הלילה כשיתעכל המזון שבמעיו. Rather, only in the middle of the night, once the food that he had at dinner has been processed. ולא יקל ראשו ביותר, nor should he be, he shouldn't be excessively light-hearted, I suppose I should say. Yakel rosho means to be frivolent. He shouldn't be too frivolent. ולא ינבל את פיו בדברי הווי, and he shouldn't sully his mouth with words with silly words, with useless words. ואפילו בינו לבינה, even between him and his wife. הרי הוא אומר בקבלה, the tradition says, מגיד לאדם מעשיחו. Tell a person what his speech is. אמרו חכמים, the sages said regarding this, אפילו שיחה קלה שבין איש לאשתו, עתיד ליתן עליה את הדין. Even on that light conversation between a man and his wife, the man is going to in the future have to give an accounting, in other words, to God. ולא יהיו שניהם לא שיכורים ולא עצלנים ולא עצבנים ולא אחד מהם. And we're still talking about him having relations with his wife. It says neither of them should be drunk, nor just lazy and not doing anything, nor irritated, neither one of them. ולא תהיה ישנה ולא יאנוס אותה, and it should not, and it cannot be that she is sleeping and he forces himself on her, or that he just tries to force himself upon her. והיא אינה רוצה, and she doesn't want him to have relations with her. Rather, אלא ברצון שניהם, both of them have to want to have relations. ובשמחתם, and when they're happy, יספר מעט וישחק עמה מעט. He should speak to her and be a little bit frivolous with her, כדי שתתיישב נפשו, so that his mind is settled. And then ויבעול בבושה ולא בעזות, and he should have relations with with shyness and not with aggressiveness. ויפרוש מיד, and separate immediately after. כל הנוהג מנהג זה, anybody who behaves in this manner, לא די לו שקידש נפשו. It's not enough that he, by behaving this way, has sanctified his soul, וטיהר עצמו, and purified himself, ותיקן דעותיו, and properly set his personality traits, אלא שאם היו לו בנים, rather, if he should have children, he should have sons rather, hovin banim na'im uvayshanim, they will be sons who are attractive and shy, ru'in lachochma ulhasidut, and worthy of being sage of wisdom and of piety. But anybody who behaves like the rest of the people, who go in darkness, then his sons will be like the rest of the people. In other words, not worthy of becoming sages. צניעות גדולה נוהגים תלמידי חכמים בעצמן. תלמידי חכמים behave with great, what's the word for tzniut? Modesty. They behave modestly with themselves. לא יתבזו, they don't allow themselves to be disgraced. ולא יגלו ראשן ולא גופן, and they will not uncover their heads nor their bodies. ואפילו בשעה שייכנסו לבית הכיסא, even when they go to the bathroom. יהא צנוע, he should be modest. ולא יגלה בגדיו עד שישב, and he should not unleash himself, take off his clothes until he's sitting down. ולא יקנח בימין, and he shouldn't wipe himself with his right hand. And this is the way it was in ancient times because they didn't have toilet paper, and in most of Arab's culture today as well. You don't wipe with your right hand. ויתרחק מכל אדם, and when he needs to go to the bathroom, he should get distance himself from everybody else. וייכנס חדר בחדר לפנים מן המערה, and he should go into an inner room as far as he can. Here saying min ha'me'ara, that's a cave, but obviously not everybody has a cave. V'nifnei sham, and he should do his business there. V'im nifnei ahorei gader, and if there was no such place and he availed himself to go behind a fence, then yahik kedei shelo yishma havero kolo im nitatesh. Then he should go far enough away that anybody else there would not hear any gases or whatever, any noises that he makes as he goes to the bathroom. V'im nifnei b'piga'ah, and if he has to go in a flat area like a field, yahik kedei shelo yir'eh havero pi'uru'o. He should go far enough away that nobody can see his nether regions. ולא ידבר כשהוא נפנה, and he should not speak when he's in the bathroom, אפילו לצורך גדול, even if there's a great need. וכדרך שנוהג צניעות בבית הכיסא ביום, כך נוהג בלילה. And just as he behaves modestly in the bathroom during the day, so too during the night. ולעולם ילמד אדם עצמו להיפנות שחרית וערבית בלבד, כדי שלא יתרחק. And a person should always train himself to go in the morning and in the evening when he's near his house so that he doesn't have to go far away. So because of danger of being set upon by violent people and so forth. תלמיד חכמים, a sage, לא יהיה צועק וצווח בשעת דיבורו. He should not scream and holler when he's speaking. כבהמות וכחיות, like beasts. ולא יגביה קולו ביותר, nor should he raise his voice excessively. Ela, rather, diburo benahat im kol habriot. He should speak calmly with everyone. Ukeshedaber benachat, and when he speaks peacefully, yizaher shelo yitrachek ad sheyireh kedivrei gasei haruach. He needs to be careful not to lower his voice and so forth and speak so softly that people think he's being snobby. Umakdim l'shalom kol adam, and he should greet every person. Kadei sheteheh ruhan noha hemenu, so that everybody thinks of him in a good way. V'dan et kol adam l'chaf zchut, and he should judge everyone favorably. Misaper b'shvach havero, he should speak of the praises of his fellow. Ve'enu misaper b'gnuto klal, and not speak of anything derogatory at all about his fellow. Ohev shalom v'rodef shalom, he should love peace and pursue peace. V'im ra'a makom shedvarav mo'ilim v'nishma'in omer, and if he sees that there's a situation in which his statements could be useful and would be listened to, then he speaks. V'im lav, but if not, shotek, he should be quiet. Ketzad, how so? Lo yeratzeh havero b'shat ka'aso, he should not try to appease his fellow, when the fellow is angry. V'lo yish'al lo al nidro b'shat shenadar ad shetitkarem da'ato v'yanuach, and he shouldn't ask a person about the oath that he made until he's calmed himself and rested. And the reason is because when someone makes an oath in anger, they're liable, and the sage comes along, and the sage can free him of his oath. But the guy's angry, and he's liable to say something stupid like, my oath was against everything," in which case the sage can't actually free him of his oath. So let the guy calm himself down and then ask him, "So what were you making a neder about?" Nor should he try to comfort the person when his dead relative that he needs to bury is there in front of him waiting to be buried. Because the person is upset, he's anxious to get his relative buried. And likewise anything that's similar to this. He should avoid seeing his fellow when he's not distressed, when he is going downhill. In other words, he's doing bad things. Rather, he should avoid observing him when he's having difficulties like this. He should not change his speech. And he should not stray from the truth and neither add nor subtract, except with regarding to keeping peace between people and so forth. The general rule is like this. He should only speak with respect to acts of see, I'm losing my words here. Gmilut hasadim is acts of kindness. Or b'divrei chochma, or with respect to words of wisdom. V'kyotze behen, or similar things to these. V'lo seper im isha b'shuk, and he shouldn't speak to women when he's in the marketplace. Afilu ishto achoto bito, even if it's his wife or his sister or his daughter. And the reason for this is because we don't want people to think that he's behaving incorrectly, right? and not everybody knows who his wife or his sister or his daughter is. לא יהלך תלמיד חכמים בקומה זקופה וגרון נטוי. A sage should not go around walking excessively, puffed up and with his throat out. In other words, like a proud person. כעניין שנאמר, like the verse says, ותלכנה נטויות גרון ומסקרות עיניים, that these girls walked around with their throats thrust out and their eyes made up. לא ילך עקב בצד גודל ונחת כמו אנשים וגסי הרוח. Nor should he walk with mincing steps like women or the very proud. Kinyan shene'emar, as the verse says, haloch v'tafof telachna u'beragleihen te'achasna, that they walked with mincing steps, and with their legs they made noises because they had bells on their shoes. V'lo yarutz b'reshut harabim. He should also not run in the public domain. V'inhog b'shigaon, and behave with craziness, and behave erratically. V'lo yichpof komato ki ba'alei chotoret, and he shouldn't bend over while he's walking or standing or whatever, like hunchbacks. Ela mistakel lamata, kmo shehu omed b'tfilah. Rather, he should look down as if he were in prayer. And he should walk with a normal pace, like people who are going about their business. Even with one's pace, with one's walk, it's known whether he's a wise person or if he's a fool. And that's what Solomon said in his wisdom. Too, in the way that a fool walks, with his lacking heart, and he says to everyone that he's a fool. Modia lakol al atzmo shu sachal. He's informing everyone that he's a fool. Malbush tamid hachamim, the clothing of a sage. Malbush na'eh naki. It should be clean and nice. Vasur lo sheyimatzeh bebigdo ketem o shamnunit v'kiyotze ba. And it's forbidden for him to walk around with stained or greasy clothes. Lo yilbosh lo malbush melachim, kegon bigdei zahav argaman she'akol mistaklin behen. He shouldn't wear clothing that's royal clothing, for example, golden or royal purple, that everybody's going to look at. Because again, going back to the idea of being modest, V'lo malbush aniim, nor should he wear clothes of the poor. Shehu mevazeh et lovshehen, et lovshav, which disgraces the wearer. Ela begadim benoniim naim, rather ordinary, middle of the road, nice clothes. V'lo yeheh b'saro nir'eh mitachat madav, nor should his flesh be seen beneath his clothing. Like the very, very fine linen garments made in Egypt, which are transparent essentially. Nor should his clothes drape down onto the ground, like the clothes of the self-important. Rather, his trouser or his whatever he's wearing, his clothes should only go down as far as his heel. Ubeit yad shelo, and his what's it called in English? His the shirt sleeves. The shirt sleeves should go ad roshe etzbaotav. They should go to top of his fingers. V'lo yishalshel talito, nor should he have his talit dragged behind him. Mipnei shenireh kegasei ruach, because it looks like he's being pompous. Ele b'Shabbat bilvad, only on Shabbat should he have his talit down. V'im ein lo le'achlif, if he doesn't have another one to change into. V'lo yilbosh min alim mitulaim kebeged tlai al gebe tlai. He shouldn't wear patched shoes, which have patches upon patches. Bimotahama, during the summer months. And what that means is shoes that have been repaired, so they have patches. Ela, rather, aval biyimot kshamim mutar im hayani. But in the winter, it's permissible if he's poor. Lo yetze mevusam l'shuk. He shouldn't go out to the marketplace when he's got perfume on. Velo bebegadim mevusamim, nor in clothing that's got perfume on it. Velo yasim bosim b'se'aro, nor should he put perfume in his hair. Aval im mashach b'saro b'bosim kedei la'avir et hazoama mutar. But if he put perfume on himself to get rid of the smell of sweat, that's permissible. Now, why is he not allowed to walk around with perfume? We'll tell that in a second. V'chen lo yetzei yachidi b'layla. He shouldn't go out on his own at night. Ele im haya lo zman kavua letzet bo letalmudo, unless he has a specific hour that he always goes out in order to do his study. Kol elu, all of these, including the bosim, the perfume, is mipnei hashad, because we don't want people to look at him and think, he's going to meet some woman, or he just came from a woman. That's why he smells like perfume. And he's out on his own. Why isn't he with his wife? Because he's going to see a woman. So he has to avoid the appearance of sin. Talmid Hachamim, a sage, michalkel dvarav b'mishpat. He does his things according to justice. Ochel v'shoteh v'zan et anshe beito kefi mamono v'atzlachato. He feeds his the people living in his house in accordance with whatever money he has and his success. V'lo yatrich al atzmo yoter midai, and he shouldn't go beyond that and try to give them more than he's able to give them, because that would then cause him to be poor and perhaps go onto the public dole. Zivu hachamim b'darkei eretz. The sages commanded with respect to darkei eretz, which means proper behavior in public. Shelo yochal adam basar ela l'teavon. A person should only eat meat according to his taste. Shene'emar, as it says, ki ta'aveh nafshecha lechol basar, because your soul desires to have meat. And he says here, dai lebari, it's enough for a healthy person, lochlo me'erev Shabbat le'erev Shabbat. It's enough to eat meat once a week. V'im haya ashir kedei le'echol basar b'chol yom ochel. But if he was rich and he could afford to eat meat every day, he could do so. Tzivu hachamim v'amru, our sages commanded and said, le'olam yochal adam pachot min ha'ra'ui lo lefi mamono. A person should always eat less than he can afford to. V'yilbosh kara'ui lo, but he should dress according to what is proper for him in his finances. V'yichabed ishto uvanav yeter min ha'ra'ui lo, and he should honor his wife and his children more than he's nominally able to. Derech ba'alei de'ah, the way of those who have a proper understanding. Shi'igbar lo adam melacha hamefarneset oto tehila. That first a person should establish himself with some kind of a job that provides him an income. And then afterwards he should buy a house to live in. And after all of that, he should marry a woman. As the verse says, and this is slightly rearranged from the way the verse says, but who's the man who planted a garden, planted a vineyard and did not yet um, reap it? Asher banabait hadash, or who built a house, a new house. Asher irasisha, who engaged a woman. Um, Aval hatipshim, but stupid people, matchilim lisaisha. First off, they go and they marry a woman. V'harkach im timtza yado yiknei bait. If he has the funds, then he'll buy a house. V'harkach b'sof yamav yachazor levakesh umanut u'yitpanes min tzedakah. And then at the end of his days, he goes and tries to find some way of making a living or living off of the dole. V'chenu omer b'klalot, and this is what it says in the curses. That Isha Te'ares, you'll get married, and then Bait Tivne, you'll build a house, and Kerem Tita, and then you'll plant an orchard, plant a vineyard, which is the way of making money. That is to say that your deeds will be completely reverse of what they should be. So that your way will not succeed. And with respect to the blessings, what's it say? Vayhi David l'chol drachav maskil ve'Hashem imo. That David, King David, in all of his ways was wise and God was with him. Ve'asur la'adam le'afkir o le'akdish kol nechasav. And it's forbidden for a person to abandon or to dedicate to the temple all of his property. V'yatrich alabriot, and therefore place himself in the public on the public trough. And Rambam has a lot to say about people who put themselves on the public dole, but not here. V'lo yimkor sadeh, he should not sell off his real estate v'yiknei bait, in order to buy a house. V'lo bait, nor should he sell off a house v'yiknei metaltelin, and to buy movable goods. Or yases chora b'dmei beito, or to do business with the money from his house. Aval mocher hu mitaltelin v'konei sadeh, but he should sell off movable objects and buy a field. Klalo shel hadavar, the general rule, yasim megamato le'atzliach nechasav, he should try to make his fortunes increase. Lo lihitnaot me'at lefi sha'a o le'anot me'at v'yafsid harbe, rather than trying to enjoy a little bit here and there in the present and lose everything because he's squandered his resources. Masa'an u'matanan shel talmidei chachamim be'emet u've'emunah. The business dealings of the sage should be truthful and honest. Omer alav lav al hin. When he needs to say no, he says no. When he says yes, he means yes. Medakdek al atzmo. He's careful with himself, beheshbon, with accounting. V'noten umevater le'acherim k'sheyikach mehen v'lo yadakdek alehen. And when he's dealing with other people, he gives them, he is lenient with them and isn't exacting with the accounting with them like he is with himself. V'noten dmei halekach laltar, and he gives the money, the price of whatever he's purchasing immediately. Ve'eno naaseh lo arav v'lo kablan, and he's neither a guarantor nor a kablan isn't a contractor in the sense of what it is someone who accepts someone's debt and then extracts the debt from the. If there's a debt between two people, he goes to the person who is owed the money and says, "I'll collect the debt on your behalf." That's what the kablan is in this context. V'lo yavo b'harsha'a, nor should he come with Harsha'a is a legal document that appoints a person to take care of stuff on other people's behalf. So he shouldn't involve himself in somebody else's financial matters. מחייב עצמו בדברי מקח וממכר, במקום שלא חייבה אותו תורה. He is more careful with himself with respect to business matters than the Torah requires him to be. כדי שיעמוד בדיבורו ולא ישנהו, so that whatever he says, he fulfills. Because sometimes you can, depending on the situation, you're allowed to stray from statements that you've made. ואם נתחייבו לו אחרים בדין, and if others are found to be liable to him in a judgment, ma'arich lehen u'mochel lehen, then he gives them extra time and he forgives them. Umalve v'honen, and he loans the money and he forgives them. V'lo yered letoch umnut hevro, and he should not she should not go into business, same business that his fellow has. In other words, not compete with him in the same small area. V'lo yetzer le'adam be'olam v'chayav, and he should not bother anybody at all. This one about not going into lo yered le'umanut chavaro, not to go into his fellow's business, applies to everything except teaching Torah. So if the guy that he's next to there is a Talmid, runs a Talmud Torah, for example, he could open up another one. The general rule is like this: Yeh mina nirdafim v'lo mina rodfim. He should be amongst the ones who are pursued, but not amongst the pursuers. Min ha'ne'elvin v'lo min ha'olvin. He should be amongst those who are insulted, but not amongst those who insult. ואדם שהוא עושה כל המעשים מאלו וכיוצא בהן, עליו הכתוב אומר, ויאמר לי עבדי אתה ישראל אשר בך אתפאר. That and if a person who behaves in this way in all of his dealings, the Tanakh says of him that he says to me, "You are my servant, Israel, amongst whom I am glorified." That's the end of chapter 5. Next week, chapter 6. B'ezrat Hashem.